Hey, in this video I'll be talking about the books I'll be looking out for in the month of February 2026. Typically, the way that I go about getting a book is that I tend to read a few pages of the book through some online samples, if they're available, before committing to purchasing, to get a feel of the writing and gauge my motivation to obtaining the book. It's not always a fail-safe, but it has worked out in my favour more often than not. So let's get straight into the video. The first book I'll be looking out for in the month of February 2026 is Esther Is Now Following You by Tanya Sweeney. This novel is described as a fresh, funny, and deeply affecting debut novel about a 30-something woman who begins stalking a celebrity comedian, and about what happens when it all becomes a bit too real. The book is compared to two popular TV shows, but since I'm not a fan of comparisons with books, I won't mention them here. I'm also going to take that it's described as a funny book with a grain of salt, since again, it's a bit hit or miss when this is part of the description. With all that being said though, the idea of a weird obsession that is both kooky and potentially tender sounds like it'll be a good read. The next book I'll be looking out for in the month of February is Greedy by Kali Kazumi, where a gambling addict lands a job working as a private chef to a Japanese billionaire with unusual taste. Last year, I read Kazumi's debut thriller, Cuckoo, which was about obsession, love, and murder, and it kept me deeply entertained. Not only had I read this author's debut novel, so I already have a feel of her writing, but I enjoyed it quite a bit. So for those reasons, that's why I'll be looking out for Greedy. The next book I'll be looking out for is She Made Herself a Monster by Anna Kovacheva. Yana, a vampire hunter, arrives in the cursed village of Kopvici, promising salvation. But there is more to the village than meets the eye, and Yana is not what she pretends to be. Yana hunts monsters. Anka might be one, and they'll need each other to survive. I'm a bit apprehensive about this one for one particular reason. The way the blurb describes Anka makes me think that Anka may be a child, and I tend to have an unenjoyable time following young characters in all sorts of media, whether that's books, TV, or film. They just have a stagnant quality to them that seems to pull the story down to sluggish levels, and I end up being disinterested in their storylines. However, the entirety of this premise intrigues me, and I remain optimistic. This one has two different covers, but I am more curious about this one, which features a painting by Artemisia Gentileschi called Judith Slaying Holofernes, who is an Assyrian general. The simple description about the painting is that early feminist critics interpreted the painting as a form of visual revenge following Gentileschi's rape by Agostino Tassi in 1611, and similarly, many other art historians see the painting in the context of her achievement in portraying strong women. Revenge is one of my most favorite themes in books, since it generally explores deep rage, unflinching pain, and sometimes even tenderness, and so I hope that it will hint at the contents of this book. The next book I'll be looking out for in the month of February is The Sun and the Star Maker by Rachel Griffin, where there once was a village so far north that most considered it the top of the world, and in that village, the sun fell in love with her star maker. It is described as a whimsical and sweeping romantic fantasy, and firstly, I absolutely love the cover. If the cover is anything to go by, then whimsy, romance, and fantasy is exactly what I'm getting from it. I happened to read a bit of the first few pages and already know I'm going to get this one. Though the blurb doesn't mention it, it does sound a bit like a Beauty and the Beast retelling, or at least inspired by Beauty and the Beast in some way. I don't necessarily feel one way or another about retellings, but I do find it interesting that that's what I'm gauging from the premise. The next book is Holy Boy by Lee Hee-ju, translated from Korean by Jo-han Lee. Four obsessed women kidnap a K-pop idol with unexpected and devastating results in this chilling, thought-provoking literary thriller that blends dark impulsions with ratcheting tension. This one sounds psychotic and I'm here for it. I believe this will be the second time I will have read about the disillusionment of fandom, the first one being Astral Season, Beastly Season by Tahi Sehate, where a couple of high school boys are so obsessed with a J-pop idol that they would go to great lengths to defend her, and it was a highly enjoyable and screwed up read. So for Holy Boy, whether there are sample pages or not, I'm getting this book regardless. The last book I'll be looking out for in the month of February 2026 is So Old, So Young by Grant Ginder. From East Village apartment parties and disastrous destination weddings to 40th birthdays and suburban backyard barbecues, Grant Ginder's resonant, funny, and deeply moving novel is about the growing pains of the millennial generation and a celebration of how love can shift, stumble, and grow into something bigger than we could ever have imagined. I first found this book on Instagram and was immediately pulled by the cover, of course. You can almost hear the bustle emanating from it. I know it seems my intrigue is completely based off the covers alone, but it's more so heightened by it than anything. They tend to provide a sense of the book or a quality like the idea of what the contents could feel like that enhances my intrigue. Otherwise, I tend to enjoy the contemporary and literary fiction genre, and this book is categorized as both. So I find myself inclined to check this one out, though I've not read any sample pages yet, so we'll see. That's it for the books I'm looking out for in February 2026. I'm currently reading There's No Such Thing as an Easy Job by Kikuku Sumara, and I have some thoughts, but I'll mention those in my wrap up soon. I'm also currently listening to XG's new album called The Core. They're a Japanese pop, rap, R&B, hip-hop group, and this is their first full-length album, and it's definitely a good one. But I can't choose my favorite song or songs yet. I think I need a few more listens until I fully decide. That's all for this video. Let me know what books you've got your eyes on and what you're currently reading and listening to. Otherwise, take care. Bye!